Story 1. Personal finance. I would argue this should happen much sooner, but you would be surprised at how many people do not understand it even at this age. Story 2. Communication. Learn how to tell someone clearly what you want or need them to do. It is a relatively easy skill to master and will save you a lot of trouble. Story 3. In 2025, core computer skills include typing and basic troubleshooting. Story 4. Say no and take no for an answer. Not everyone likes to disappoint and no one likes to be told no, but it is a bigger problem than you might think. Story 5. Everyone should know how to change a flat tire. It sounds boring, but trust me, you do not want to be stuck on the side of the road waiting for help. Story 6. How to study effectively. Alternatively, it is communication. Story 7. People should learn to cook well before age 30. They could save a lot of money by preparing meals for themselves instead of constantly eating out or ordering delivery. Story 8. Emotional regulation is important. The number of people I know in their 30s and 40s who still lose their temper at the slightest upset is shocking. People should not lose control and endanger others on the road because they are having a bad morning or someone cut them off. Story 9. Assuming you own a car, changing your own oil is getting ridiculously expensive with no end in sight. Oil changes used to be $30 to $60 depending on whether you used synthetic oil. Now we regularly pay $120 to $150. Story 10. During a dinner party years ago, my brother-in-law saved my wife's life with the Heimlich maneuver after a strawberry became lodged in her throat. I often think how it could have gone two ways, life or death. No ambulance could have arrived in time to save her. What could have been a tragedy turned into a celebration. I bought him a 40-pound bottle of Irish whiskey the next day. Story 11. Appreciation of other people, including their differences, skills, and cultures. Story 12. You are not special. You will not discover a secret that instantly makes you wealthy. You will not be driving a Bugatti at 30 or living in 50 mansions around the world. You may need to work a job you dislike when you are young to learn the value of hard work and money. That real-life experience will take you to the next level. Without that experience, you may waste your 20s chasing the algorithm and end up a cashier at McDonald's because you lack real-world experience and are not a candidate for higher-level positions. If you do not learn this before turning 30, you will learn it afterward, and the lessons will be far more painful. You may go from entrepreneurial hustler to reading about how to file for bankruptcy because you never learned the value of a dollar. Story 13. How to say no, and more importantly, how to accept no as an answer. Story 14. Point of view. You are in your late 20s to early 30s scrolling through to see how many of these you have. Story 15. Communication and basic human interaction skills, also known as social skills. Story 16. Changing your own brake pads. I do not know why brake shops charge $600 to replace two pads that cost $30. Story 17. Put things back where you found them when you are done using them. Do it not for others or to be polite, although that is also good, but to free up a large percentage of your brain for more impactful thoughts than wondering where things are. This is like putting money into a savings account. It may seem minor when you are 20-something, but the payoff compounds massively over the years. Story 18. Standing up for yourself, knowing when to say no, and being there for a friend when needed. Story 19. Any musical instrument. It is a great feeling to teach your future child or even your nephew or niece something related to music. Story 20. I think the most important skill for an adult is not to give in to pressure from their social environment. It is your life. You have a right to it and to arrange it as you see fit, not to suit others. Story 21. How to say no without over-explaining or feeling guilty. Story 22. Start early and learn to cook. Learn to properly prepare meat, steam or sauté vegetables, and make rice and other grains. With those three skills, you can make a wide range of meals. Story 23. Selling yourself. You do not master it in your 20s, but you should be learning it and have a reasonable grasp by 30. By then you will have some hindsight about who you are, which makes selling yourself easier. Creating a LinkedIn profile and connecting with people is a start, but having real conversations is key to landing a job. I often see posts that say 200 applications, no interviews. You need to have at least one conversation with someone at the company before you apply, even if it only results in them directing you to the online application. Story 24. How to say no properly. How to offboard people properly. Story 25. I have two for you: communication and personal finance. The ability to communicate clearly and effectively can take you pretty far in life. Understanding basic personal finance can help you avoid crippling debt. Story 26. Staying off the phone for as long as possible. The world does not seem as mad, bad, and sad that way. Story 27. Discernment. Learn to avoid and ignore people who are under negative influences. Extend them grace by trying to understand them while keeping your distance. If such people persist in causing trouble in your life, enforce boundaries and apply consequences firmly. Story 28. How to advocate for yourself. I have disabilities, and this skill has proven to be more helpful than cooking and finance combined. Even if you do not have a disability, you need to know how to advocate for yourself. Story 29. How to treat employees of any company, in any role, with respect. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. From fast food workers to company chief executive officers, everyone deserves respect when you speak to them, especially if you're asking for something. It is not hard. As the saying goes, sugar goes down better than vinegar. Story 30. Being able to search the internet for answers. You would be surprised by how poorly people do this. Story 31. There are so many essential life skills and many people have voiced them here. I cannot choose just one skill since cooking, swimming, and personal finance are all equally important. A successful and happy person is not going to be one-dimensional. Story 32. Find a reliable way to calculate your age based on the current year. You are about to start forgetting how old you are. Story 33. Typing is important. Many jobs use desktop computers and keyboard shortcuts. Story 34. It may not be a formal skill, but people should learn to tolerate those who do not agree with them. Everyone can learn life and career skills if they choose to, but few have learned to accept differences in others. Story 35. Emotional regulation is important. Mindfulness practices and meditation help because someone will not always be there to pick you up when you are down. Story 36. How to tie a bindle. You never know when it's time to pack up and hit the dusty trail. Story 37. Use the batleth for self-defense. Do not blink at weeping angels. Story 38. Cooking healthy food on a budget offers lifelong benefits and leftovers. Story 39. Learning how to learn in a way that works best for you. We are all unique and learn differently, so the faster you discover your way, the better you will get at anything you want to learn. Story 40. Learning to recognize when someone is appealing to your greed or envy and refusing to go along with them. Story 41. Learn how to be happy, focus on your needs, and truly get along with yourself. Story 42. Learn how to cook and how to balance your budget. The rest will come easily if you master these skills. Story 43. Learning how to manage personal finances, including budgeting, basic tax concepts, and saving for emergencies, saved me a lot of stress before I turned 30. Start with small monthly habits. Story 44. Skateboarding. The risk of broken bones and slower recovery after this age is troublesome. I wish I had done it. I am 54 and envious. Story 45. Men, learn how to tie a damn tie and love yourself. Ladies, learn how to change a damn tire and love yourself. Story 46. Roll a joint, make an omelet and whip your own ass. Anthony Bourdain. Story 47. How to learn well. I do not mean in a basic sense. Most people can learn new things, though many resist. Learn how to manage and overcome frustration. Practice acquiring new information deliberately and stay curious. Story 48. Survival skills. Building a fire, constructing a shelter, finding clean drinking water, and making water filters from sand and stones. Story 49. How to start a fire and how to grow your own food. It might be dirty work, but it makes eating immensely cheaper and probably a lot safer than the plastic foods on shelves and in fast food places. Story 50. My first answer would be cooking. My mother taught me to cook when I was 9 years old. I may be a lazy cook, but thanks to her, I will never be a starving bachelor. Fortunately, my bachelor days will be over in less than a year. Another skill I think you should learn, but that I unfortunately cannot master, is sewing. If I knew how to mend my own clothes, I would never have to pay a tailor. I have had to throw away so many pairs of pants because they developed holes. Story 51. How to do basic car maintenance. You should learn this before you turn 20. Story 52. Changing a tire, especially in inclement weather such as rain or cold, can be dangerous. Story 53. How to absorb new information and learn effectively. This is a skill that is particularly difficult to master later in life. Story 54. Sweet Jesus. Please learn how to change a tire. Every car sold in America includes a spare tire unless it is a used vehicle and the spare has been removed. It also includes a small jack and a lug wrench to remove the factory lug nuts. I see far too many people stuck on the side of the road, waiting for the American Automobile Association or a tow truck because of a flat or blown tire. Story 55. How to listen and share a conversation with 2, 3, or 4 people. Story 56. Definitely you should know, or at least be a master of, the withdrawal method. In today's economy, it is better to learn that as soon as you can than the hard way 9 months later. Story 57. If I had to boil it down to a single skill, it would be self-discipline. Without it, nothing else matters much. If you are not practicing self-discipline, you will not accomplish your goals or succeed in school or at work. You may jeopardize your financial stability and your future. On the other hand, practicing good self-discipline, especially delayed gratification, leads to greater happiness, increased self-confidence, and higher self-esteem. You are likely to make better decisions and improve your overall physical and mental health. Story 58. Painting. You would be shocked at how much it rewires your brain to notice more details and to better appreciate the beauty in the world. Story 59. Personal finance. I am not kidding when I tell you my school's financial literacy education started and ended with how to write a check. Story 60. Emotional regulation. I believe you see many adults throwing tantrums. Story 61. I'm here to be the 100th person to say cooking. It also saves you money if you buy ingredients and cook at home instead of relying on prepared meals or takeout. Those costs add up, especially when you live alone. If you are in a relationship or dating, knowing how to cook makes you more attractive, not physically but in a lasting way that matters when you are older. Just listen to how women talk about their husbands who know how to cook for them. If you know how to cook, you get to have exactly the food you want every day. My family started teaching me to cook in childhood, including the boys, because my father cooked more than my mother did. The culture shock was real. Story 62. Reading all of this makes me think I am completely fucked. Cannot cook or swim. I am in debt. I can sew a person but not clothes. Is it the same? Story 63. Basic auto care. Even if you always go to Firestone, National Tire and Battery, the local mechanic, or elsewhere, know how your vehicle works so you can hold your mechanic accountable. Story 64. Choosing the person with whom you will have children is the most important decision you will ever make. Story 65. Be your own first responder. When seconds count, help may be minutes away. Learn cardiopulmonary resuscitation, how to stop bleeding, and basic first aid. Learn how to use a fire extinguisher. Learn safe firearm handling. Story 66. Learn how to troubleshoot both digitally and physically. Be curious about the tools, machines, and devices you use every day. Understand how they work, why they fail, and how to approach fixing them. This will help you save money by repairing things at home and help you excel in work environments. Story 67. Everything here requires a bit of discipline to learn something important that may not interest you. Learn to set your feelings aside and do what needs to be done. Story 68. Read contracts, receipts, and terms of service before you sign anything. Story 69. Change a tire, check your oil and fluids, fix a leaky tap, Catch and release a spider from your kitchen. Story 70. Personal finance, self-management, interpersonal abilities, and practical life skills. Story 71. I would argue in favor of learning parenting skills. I know some of us will never become parents. Nevertheless, it is definitely useful to have the basics down. Story 72. Cooking. I don't believe everyone needs to be a master chef, but I know many adults who seem to think cooking is akin to alchemy. Story 73. Know when to stop arguing with someone who refuses to use logic. Save yourself the headache. You will not win. Learn to save and invest properly. Many people in their 20s think short-term. Start by saving a small amount weekly or monthly and do not touch it, or invest in a diversified index such as the Standard & Poor's 500. Over the long term, it tends to increase in value. Learn to cook when you are young. You will save a lot of money by preparing dinners and cooking in advance. I feel old. I am only 30, but my sister's generation eats out so often and sees no issue with the money spent. Maintain general cleanliness in your home. Keeping a home today is easy, but I know adults 30 or older whose homes have odors built into the walls and furniture. Do not smoke inside. Leave windows on latches to air out the house. Mop floors regularly, and do not wear shoes indoors. Story 74. Read instructions in full before following them. At my workplace, people return many Amazon items and do not process them properly. This could be avoided if people took an extra 2 seconds to read the instructions. Otherwise, it creates a 5-minute delay at the counter. Story 75. Swimming. I have a friend who is a doctor and still cannot swim. Story 76. Personal finances, including how to avoid unreasonable debt, should be understood by age 16 at the latest. Story 77. Basic maintenance and repair of homes, cars, and many other things. I have saved thousands of dollars by doing most repairs for the past 20 years. My youngest knows his way around a tool set, and my oldest modifies his electronics using my soldering kit. I rarely pay someone to make repairs. Story 78. I read many of these and they are all good suggestions. However, I do not see advice about learning to communicate effectively and be intimate with the partner you plan to spend your life with. Story 79. How to prepare basic meals without burning down the kitchen. Story 80. The ability to do 1 pull-up and 1 push-up. The number of people under 30 who cannot do this and have no legitimate excuse is pretty sad. As far as I'm concerned, this is equivalent to walking. As a creature on this planet, you have failed evolution if you cannot even move your own body mass in simple ways. Story 81. Planning ahead. So many poor decisions are made because people do not take a moment to plan. For example, taking an inefficient route that cuts into your weekend, or failing to plan for expected expenses, which can leave you staring at a bill you cannot pay. Story 82. How to make friends outside of academic and workplace settings. Story 83. How to cook basic meals. How to properly clean your body and your living space. How to manage your finances and avoid competing with inauthentic social media lifestyles. Story 84. Learn to wiggle your ears. It also helps to learn to pat your head and rub your belly at the same time. If you are clever, you might learn the bee's knees move. I am not a professional self-help guru. I just have common sense. This may seem like a silly post, but at the age you mentioned, you are gearing up for parenthood if you are not a parent already, and these tricks always cheered up a crying child. Yes, I am old. Story 85. Because I have observed strong fiscal responsibility, I would add communication skills. I work constantly on becoming more eloquent and communicating my thoughts clearly. Story 86. Personal finances, cooking, basic sewing, how to change a tire, doing laundry, how to defend yourself, and how dachshunds work. Story 87. There is a difference between being nice and being kind. I have just turned 30 and I am pleased to have learned most things in this thread except oil and tire changes. Story 88. Basic car maintenance. It is surprising how many people do not know how to change a tire or replace a battery. Story 89. Maintenance. You will save a lot in your lifetime, either by doing your own maintenance or by recognizing when someone you hire is full of nonsense. Cars, bicycles, computers, the home, and so on. Finance was already taken. Story 90, how to cook. How to mend clothes using sewing and patchwork. How to change your tire. How to fix a faucet that drains slowly. How to start a fire safely. Basic first aid and cardiopulmonary resuscitation. How to continue learning even after you are no longer in school. Story 91. Basic home maintenance. Every day I get calls for jobs like hanging a television or assembling a dresser. Don't get me wrong. I love the work, but I will never pay someone to do something I can do myself. The only exceptions I make are for yard work, or sometimes I will send the laundry out. Story 92. Personal finance, cooking, basic car maintenance, and communication skills. Story 93. Budgeting, living within your paycheck, and being happy with what you have. Story 94. Cleaning, cooking, and washing clothes are essential. I would have included hygiene, but I hope some learned it at an earlier age. Story 95. How to learn. We only have a small, finite amount of time, so we must be efficient. Some of us learned to do this in school, but the coronavirus disease disrupted that, at least it seems that way in the United States. Story 96. Fixing a zipper is surprisingly easy, yet many people do not bother. This leads to a lot of waste from jackets, sweatshirts, backpacks, luggage, and more. Story 97. How to change a tire. I don't know and wish someone had taught me. Story 98. Programming in Python is only slightly harder than describing the problem in plain English, and it can perform complex mathematical calculations much faster than you could by hand or with a calculator. Story 99. How to manage emotions such as anger, disappointment, and feeling overwhelmed. Many people act on emotion without taking a minute to organize their thoughts and the reasons behind them. Listen, process, and then react. Story 100. It is always a good idea to know how to cook a great meal. Story 101. Manage your money. Cook on a budget. Basic home repairs. Caulking, locating the water shutoff, faucet replacement, painting and drywall repairs, picture hanging, shelf installation. Proper personal hygiene. Cleaning yourself and your immediate home environment. Emotional intelligence. Story 102. Do not spend what you do not have. Wipe down counters and sweep the floor. At a minimum, know how to make an omelet and how to cook a steak. Story 103. Take responsibility for yourself and for the things you must care for. When you're in your 30s, you're a real adult. Story 104. This is not about a skill but an assessment of whether drinking is right for you. Many people struggle with alcohol and do not realize it is not normal to cry or remove their shirt every time they drink. Story 105. First aid should be taught at school. Could save a life one day. Story 106. Parallel parking, personal finance, and saving money. Basic first aid. How to change a tire and self-care. As a step-parent to a 26-year-old, learn how to buy groceries and cook meals, and do not spend $200 a week on DoorDash. Story 107. Knowing what self-reflection is and how to use it is not a problem when you learn it early. Story 108. A proper cleaning routine takes practice. It is a learned skill. Story 109. First aid, sewing, cooking, and using a wrench. Not in any particular order. Be good at all of them. If those skills are not available immediately, at least have the books ready to teach and guide when they are needed. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.